What's poppin', people? It's your main man, Manley Miller.
And it's the king of Clearview himself, Javier Acosta.
This is Cuisine.
Come get spiritually fed while you stuck in bed.
Celebration Church, Kenner Campus Podcast.
I like your shirt, Pastor Manley.
Oh, you know what it says. Why y'all trying to test the Jesus in me?
You made that yourself? You got that for yourself? Someone
I got this at Flirty Girl.
Oh, okay.
Flirty Boy.
What is that?
It's like a...
Is that a store?
Yeah, it's like a New Orleans store. They got New Orleans
Is that a woman's
stuff.
T-shirt right there?
No, man.
No, you can't buy no man's shirt up in Flirty Girl.
I'm way too fat to be wearing women's clothes, bro. If I wear a woman's double XL, you gonna see my midriff. My belly button be hanging out the bottom.
Oh, that's not true. You're looking good.
I've been doing this keto for like...
Oh, have you?
Yeah, this week 3, trying to lose these 19 pounds I put on earlier.
There you go. We gonna make it. We gonna make it.
I use my whole...
You just trying to break even? Is that what it is?
Yeah, pretty much. I'm just trying not to have to buy a new set of pants.
Oh, yeah.
I was pushing it. I put my pants on. I could hear them whining. They were like,
Well, at least you got that stimulus check if you do need to buy some good jeans.
No, I ain't spending my stimulus money on those jeans,
Close.
man. There ain't no way in the world.
I saw a meme the other day. It was like, you know that little cat that's been typing on the computer?
Yeah.
You seen it? And it's like me shopping for clothes, knowing well I ain't going nowhere anytime soon.
That's the thing, man. You just lucky I ain't in gym shorts up here now. I put pants on for you. Look professional.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that.
You know, I got to wear the hat now. Brother ain't got a haircut, you know.
Yeah. Hey, it's all right. Your hair it still looks pretty good to me.
No, it does not look good. No, I mean, I got all this.
It looks good from afar, but it's far from looking good.
That's what it is. It's camera ready.
Yeah, it's camera ready.
It's camera ready with enough hairspray. You can make it look right.
That's right. That's right. So we in, I don't know what week we in anymore. I don't even know
way
what
too
episode
many.
this
We
is.
in week way too many.
This episode continuing. And so I wanted to title today's episode QuaranTEAM. QuaranTEAM.
Look at you getting so creative and fancy.
QuaranTEAM.
QuaranTEAM.
It sounds better when you say it. QuaranTEAM.
Because you hesitate. You gotta have confidence.
I'm calling it quarantine.
Yeah, quarantine.
That's it. And so
it's like Valentine's Day. People already say quarantine anyway, so just go with it.
Right. And so something that you mentioned a long time ago, I saw you mention was someone put on Facebook, pray for your pastor. They're leading they said for the first time they're leading a congregation through a crisis. But I saw that something you posted was like, nah, we've been through a lot of crises out here in New Orleans, right?
Oh yeah.
And you've done led through a lot of them already.
Yeah, I mean, I had my first year on the church's staff was in 2001. In March of 2001, I joined the church's staff. My first year I went through September 11th, which wasn't really a local crisis, but was a national crisis and a faith crisis. Then we went through Hurricane Katrina. We've been through the BP oil spill. We've been through the mortgage crisis, mortgage meltdown. Yeah. Now you're like, it's just another one at this point.
I forgot about the BP oil spill. I got money off of that too. I don't even know how.
But you always a hustler, man. That's why I like this church.
Yeah.
Church staff ain't nothing but a bunch of hustlers that just kind of made it out.
We resourceful. So let me ask you this then. How has leading through this crisis, leading our team especially, been different? Does it feel different? Is it different? Is it similar? Is it, is it more challenging than things like Katrina? How has that kind of been?
I think that this is more challenging because Pastor Dennis said this early on. He said, in Hurricane Katrina, we had the cavalry come in, meaning like the rest of the nation rallied around us. This thing ain't no cavalry. This is global. This is affecting everybody. So I think that it is different because of the scale, the magnitude, the size, the scope. It's affecting people's kids' schooling. It's affecting their ability to go to work, to go to the grocery store, to gather as a church. I mean, it's like it's widespread, not just in like the epidemic sense, but it's widespread in the amount of people that it affects and what they're facing and what they're dealing with and what they're going through and what they experiencing. So I think it's the challenge is that it's not like, all right, there's this group of people over here, they doing all right. And then this group of people over here going through that are struggling. Yeah. Like even when Katrina happened, right? Like some people flooded, some people didn't.
Yeah.
Some people had a place to go, some people didn't. Some people kept their jobs, some people did. It's like, this is like everybody. Every single human being that lives in this area is affected in one way or the other, whether it's economically, whether or not it's their health, whether or not it's a loved one that's sick or somebody facing something or, even just regular challenges of going to the doctor or what you might have to do. Like all of a sudden, every single person is affected in some way by this experience.
Yeah. And so I guess what I wanted to touch on today was the fact that you as a pastor and leader now, you have a team. I'm a part of that team. I get to work under you. It's a huge blessing. I love it. You're amazing. Thank you so much for everything you do.
Whatever.
And
you got to say that because you.
But, one of the things is that lots of leaders right now are trying to lead a team through a crisis, and it's getting difficult, right? As time goes on, I think that maybe in the beginning, they bring out a little extra passion, try to rally the troops. But as time keeps going and things keep getting extended and people keep getting sick, how are you motivating your team personally? Like, obviously I can answer that as a part of it, but how are you looking at that? What's your plan for that?
I had the privilege, one of my mentors was Ricky Rigsby, and Ricky Rigsby was hot on John Maxwell as a leadership coach, late 90s, early 2000s, 20 years ago. And as a new Christian, he would bring me in and he had cassette tapes. And it was John Maxwell. His organization was Enjoy. And it was like a pastor's leadership training. And you listen to these cassette tapes and take notes and fill in your blanks and all of this. And I had the privilege of having someone in my life who pushed to develop me as a leader. Yeah. Not just as a Christian, not just as a disciple, but to have the burden of leadership. Now, what happens is when you got a team or even if you're a family, your family's a team, right? Yeah. Like when now all of a sudden you got to lead and navigate through chaos and uncertainty. Yeah. You really begin to get exposed as a leader. Yeah. And you got to want to grow and you got to want to be good and you got to want to develop. And for a lot of people, what happens is really this crisis to me is not overwhelming as a leader because I've been working on my leadership for 20 years to be at a point where it's like, okay, I can lead through this. I think for a lot of people, if you don't work on your leadership, now all of a sudden some things are getting exposed. Yeah. And it's like, man, now I got to do something about it. Now I got to grow in this area. And it begins to show and expose and reveal certain things that you got to grow and develop in. And I think, leadership is like anything else. You got to work to get better. Some people are naturally good at leadership. Yeah. But even those people have to learn how to lead better if they want to continue growing. Yeah. Others, it's not as natural, but you can still grow no matter what you are, right? Like you might not start out as a 1 and end up as a 10, but you can start out at 1 and end up as a 6 or a 7. Right. If you work and work and work on it. And nobody's naturally a 10 at leadership because leadership is just way too complicated. And then even if you were 10 at leadership, you might be a 10 at the level you're at. Yeah. But then when you move to the next level, you're not a 10 at the next level. Right. You a 3 at the next level. It's like once you go up to the next level, you start to learn. And by levels, I just mean scope of responsibility and scope of burden. It's like, it's easy to be a good money manager when you're making $400 a month. Right. It's a whole nother thing to be a good money manager when you're making $4,000. Yeah. And it's even a whole nother thing when you're making $40,000. Yeah. And we always wish we had more. Right. But with more comes more burden, more complexity, more demands, and the bigger your responsibilities, the bigger the business you're leading, the bigger the team you're managing, the bigger the family you're leading, the bigger it gets, the harder leadership becomes. And then when you add crisis to it, you better be on top of everybody working to grow. And so I think really it just starts with wanting it. Right. Desiring it, hungering for it, and saying, you know what, I'm going to take whatever I can do in my leadership to the next level so that you can lead a team well. Yeah. And when it comes to leading a team well, to me, it's just really all about not being afraid, not letting the crisis be bigger than it is, and trying to be there for people. The church at the end of the day, we're producing this content and all of this, but that's not the most important thing. The most important thing is the actual individual people and trying to stay connected with them and stay plugged in with them and be there for them. And, it's like it's way more effective when we can serve somebody and be there in their lives. Yeah. And it works no different with the own team that you're leading. Yeah.
I like what you touched on, too, just saying, like, if you're a parent or you have a family, you're a leader. That's your team. And the reality is this whole pandemic and crisis, to me, has really been kind of like a stress test that really reveals what's really there.
Yeah, certainly.
How strong really is your team? Because, any leader can look at themselves and say, well, I'm an 8. I think I'm pretty good. Well, you're an 8 depending on what, right? Because really, it don't really matter what you are. In a sense, you got to look at your team. That's going to really tell you what you really are, right? Because if you say you're an 8, but everybody on your team's a 3 or leading at a 3, then are you really an 8 or are you really more of a 4? Because obviously we're the lid. But it's kind of like, if I'm an 8, then most of my team should be at a 6 or a 7.
Well, I've always stayed reading John Maxwell stuff, and he had a book I read not that long ago when it was about, developing your team. And then I read, and I learned a lot from that. But then I read something else he wrote, and it pushed me even to another level. And he was talking about how if you want to move to the next level, you got to move from being a soloist to a conductor. Mm-hmm. And he was saying how, it's interesting. The conductor is the most critical part of the orchestra, but he don't play any instrument. Mm-hmm. But he got to know what every instrument's supposed to be playing. Yeah. Right? And it's like, it's easy for people to go, well, man, you asking me to do something that's hard. It's like, yeah, you're right, I am. That's what a leader does. A leader demands things of others. And it's not just about doing everything yourself, but it's about moving to the next level. And, like as a church staff, we had something we did, Leadership Greenhouse, for a number of years, where it was like, all right, you got to get better at leading yourself. Right. Then the next level is leading others. Then the next level is leading leaders. Then the next level is leading departments. Then the next level is leading organizations. Every one of those things is a different level of leadership. And as you grow to each level, it takes something different, right? And so it's like with a family, it's easy to do what you want to do. It's hard to motivate somebody else to do something. Yeah. And it's like, it's unfortunate because people don't look at, like, if you got kids, right? Man, that's one of the hardest leadership jobs in the world because they don't have to listen to you. Yeah. I mean, it's like, how hard it is to lead Ezra right now? I mean, he's absolutely. Like, he does what he wants to do because he's a baby. It's like, that's what they do. And so, it just seems to get harder from there.
Yeah, and I think that there's a certain amount of humility it takes to really become a better leader and lead your teams more excellently, because you have to be able to say to yourself, I don't know everything. And I saw that yesterday. I was challenged by that a few days ago on social media. I saw somebody say, like, you've probably been reading a lot of leadership books, but when's the last time you read a parenting book? Or when's the last time you read a money management book?
Or a marriage book.
Or a marriage book, or any of those kinds of things. And I think to a certain point, we always think, I got to be a better leader. But, okay, how about your family? How about these different things? And I personally have to have the humility to say, I need to take time to invest in my knowledge and invest in what I know. And I need to get that from people who know more than me, because the only way for me to grow is to learn from someone who's at the next level. I can't be over here talking to people who are, I don't want to say lower levels or at the same level, but find people who know more than you and
I think some of, when you start talking about this, you talk about leadership in crisis and leading the team. I think that as you grow, you start to learn the less and less that you know. Yeah. And I think that as a younger man, I thought I knew everything, right? Yeah. Then you grow and you start to realize you don't know everything, and then you start thinking, well, I just know the right thing. I know the right thing to do. Yeah. And then as you said it, then you start going, man, I don't know everything. But then when you move to the next level, you realize, I don't know nothing.
Yeah, that's how I feel.
I don't know nothing at all, man. I'm like, I'm clueless, and people are like, man, you know about so much. I'm like, I don't know nothing. Yeah. Because you know what? I don't know what they're doing tomorrow. Yeah. And that's it. That's the boat we're all in. And so this has really exposed the fact that you don't have the answers. You don't have the solutions. People are like, what you gonna do about the church? I don't know. Yeah. I'll tell you tomorrow.
How long you think this gonna last?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know nothing.
Who knows? Say, well, what if they say the church can have 50 people? Well, we're not gonna have 200 services. I ain't preaching that much. I know that much. Who playing the music? Who watching the kids? Right. It's like there's so many things that are uncertain and so many things that you just don't know. And so I think really it comes down to the one thing you can control and you do know is you can care about people. Yeah. You can, and I think that was the whole thing, as you said, QuaranTEAM. How do you build a team, right? You build a team by caring about people. Yeah. That's the first and foremost thing it takes to really do something.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because when I think about, people who care about people, and I think about teams being excellent, I think a lot about Chickfila. Because a good friend of ours, he comes here. His name's Chris Salomone. He's the owner and operator of the Chickfila here in Kenner. He attends our campus. Super great contributor. He contributes to the community, helps out the church, and he's really just a servant. And, I mean, they just got a great team over there. So I wanted to invite him over to just hear from him what they're doing about, this QuaranTEAM, how they're motivating their team, and how they kind of work through all that.
That's great. Let's get Chris on the phone. Chris is the owner-operator to Chick-fil-A in Kenner. He's the operator consultant for the one in the airport, as well as the one in ULL, Louisiana Lafayette. So, I mean, he's a busy guy with a lot of people that he's trying to manage and invest in.
He's leading at a high level.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think it's going to be great to hear from him what he's doing to make sure that they're doing a good job.
All right, let's call him. All right, well, welcome, Chris, man. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're so glad to have you on our episode of QuaranTEAM Motivation. And I think about teamwork and excellence. My mind always goes to Chick-fil-A. How about you, Pastor Manley?
They always got it organized, man.
They got it popping, right?
Yeah, always.
Much better than Popeyes, in my opinion. Their teamwork there is. What do you think, Pastor Man?
But Popeyes is not known for its customer service, that's for sure.
You don't go to Popeyes for the customer service, right?
Look, Chick-fil-A is the shining star of customer service and treating people right. There's no doubt about that.
Amen, amen. And so I know something that we have conversations about, Chris, is just your team and keeping them tight and keeping them excellent. And so I wanted to bring you on today to really talk about that, share with us some of your experience and wisdom and knowledge on how us as, like, I'm thinking about myself as a pastor, I'm thinking about business leaders, I'm thinking about team leaders, I'm thinking about life group leaders, I'm thinking about anyone who leads any kind of team. I'm thinking about parents who have to lead their children right now, right? How do we keep our team motivated through crisis? And so let me ask you that question. What are you doing right now as far as keeping your team motivated?
Yeah, so the answers to that are really multifaceted. First of all, thank you guys for having me on. I appreciate it. And just to give a shout out to Popeyes, we all have to have somewhere to go on Sunday.
Amen.
And I personally love Popeyes. So,
I thought I saw your car in the drive-thru the other day. That's what I was. Yeah, I got you. Makes sense.
If it was a Sunday, you probably did. So for us at Chick-fil-A, it really begins with selection. And then kind of integration or orientation into our culture, and then just consistent training from there on. And I'll get into a few things. But part of selection is also selection of the community that we're in. And me as an owner operator, I live in this community. I live in Kenner. You guys know that. Go to Celebration Church. I invest in the community. I call it farming the community. And we do that. Actually, we partner with Celebration to do that. We partner with several schools through Chick-fil-A Leader Academy. We partner with Junior Achievement Center. And we're actually in the community, being part of the foundational moments of everyone's lives. And that initiates recruiting, but it also initiates and kind of elevates the community, so to speak, in different ways, not just benefiting my business, but benefiting the community as a whole. And so that's kind of what we're all about. Once we get to the selection piece, there's a few things that we look for in people. We want to see them genuinely smile, not a fake smile. We ask questions that are designed to find out, what is this person's heart? Do they have a heart for service? Do they have a servant's heart? And we're not necessarily looking for the fastest or the smartest or the most aggressive or whatever. That's not necessarily what we're looking for. We're looking for someone with a great smile and a servant's heart. And then me, and you guys know this, I'm super competitive. So I also like to have competitive people on my staff. Kind of gets you going, right?
Right.
So once then we move into the orientation piece. We get everyone kind of integrated into our culture.
Oh,
sorry about that. I had a little camera failure.
It's all good. It happens, brothers. Happens.
The Holy Spirit hit you on the side.
So we get everybody.
Is that what you do to make sure people have a real smile? Like you'll have FaceTime.
Yeah.
And if they just keep a cold heart.
If we see that smile shine, that's wonderful. We know what we need to do.
That's right.
So a shout out to Dana Lawrence. Actually, she's our culture director, and she gets people integrated into our culture. Several of you people might know Dana. If you do, give her a shout out. So yeah, and then from then on, it's just constant training. And we actually have a goal this year to be the best trained Chick-fil-A in New Orleans.
Wow. Yeah.
And due to this pandemic, we've been able to really take a giant leap forward on that, because in order to maintain people's paychecks, they're able to make up the hours that we're not scheduling them by doing training online at home. So, just fulfilling that, what our mission is this year. So after the culture integration, then we move on to the kind of reaffirmation piece. And that's what we call grit. I like acronyms. I was in the Coast Guard for 8 years, and we call it GRIT. And people in Kenner know what GRIT's all about, and it's one of the reasons why I love being here. But we took GRIT and made it an acronym. It's be good at what you do. That's the G. Good at what you do. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be fantastic, but you got to be good at it. It means you got to put in the work to learn what it is that you're doing, how to do it best, and continually try to improve on it. Be good at what you do. The second thing is be respectable. And that means you need to uphold yourself in such a way that people will respect you. Respect your actions, respect your demeanor, respect your conversation. Be respectable. Are you able to be respected? The third thing is be intentional. So everything that we do in the restaurant is with some sort of intent. We don't meander aimlessly. We don't meander. We don't, wander around, not just sitting around lollygagging. We're intentional about what we're doing, and it all needs to go towards being providing a genuinely hospitable service to our customers. And then the last thing for GRIT is think differently. So GRIT, think differently. One of the exercises I love doing is with the dots on the diagram, and they want you to do touch all the lines without ever lifting your pencil or crossing over the same line. And it really teaches people to think outside the box, right? Because you have to go beyond the dots in order to do it. And at Chick-fil-A, we think differently. I mean, we have the app express lane. We just do things differently.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that shows by, how successful you guys have been. And it shows by, our personal experience, my personal experience is anytime, on Sundays I am upset because every Sunday it never fails. We say to ourselves, man, some Chick-fil-A would be so nice right now. But it seems like that's every day. Like my kids, their favorite food is Chick-fil-A. And it's because of the excellence that's delivered every time. And that comes from, I think, like you saying, is having an excellent team.
Yeah, it totally does. So, and then going into leading a team through this crisis, I've actually got, there's 3 little articles that I've read that really kind of inspired me during this time to inspire and assist my team. And so love to share those with you. The first one and my favorite is by an author named Jan Bruce with Leadership Strategy. And I'll send these to you guys.
Yeah, please do. We'll put them in the show notes
if you want to link them.
Yeah.
But she touches on 5 points that I think are just really powerful. Number 1 is, as a leader, right? Keep your emotions in check. You need to be the calm person. You need to be the consistent person throughout all of it. And your team is going to get their demeanor from you. They're going to feed off of you and feed off of your energy. So keep your emotions in check. Number 2 is remain realistic. You don't need to over sensationalize things, but we also don't need to say, hey, this isn't real, or this is, this is a fake thing that we're going through. No matter what it is, we're going through. So we need to be realistic about what's going on. Number 3, adaptivity is key. And that's something that I appreciate in people, something that we try to instill in people is adaptivity and adaptability. Though we might have a plan today, that plan might change completely tomorrow. And that's okay, and that should happen through these times. You should have an evolving plan. But the ability to be adaptable or adaptability is huge. Number 4, encourage empathy. Right? We don't know everybody's story. At Chick-fil-A, we have this training video that we share with people called Every Life Has a Story. And it's true. We don't know what Jane is dealing with today when we serve her, but we know that we want to make her day just a little bit better every single time. And if she comes to us, it's amazing some of the stories that we get out of people when we hand them their box of 8-count chicken nuggets. And we want to encourage that empathy and allow our team members to have a moment with people.
Yeah.
And, maybe some of the reason why some of our lines are so long is maybe we are having a few more moments with people in the fast food restaurant.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, Truett Cathy, the founder of Chick-fil-A, years ago, he said, we left the chicken business a long time ago. We're in the people business.
That's good. That's real good.
And that's where we are today. So encourage empathy. And then 5, empower your people. So me, I'm very type A personality. On the DISC profile, I'm a high D. I'm someone that really loves getting in there, solving problems. It's very easy for me to slip into micromanaging. And during this time period when my ULL location is closed and the airport is not seeing much traffic, a lot of my time can be spent at the Kinder location and undermining the authority of my leaders, and taking away some of the authority that I've given them. And so it's important to remember to empower your people and keep those chains of command intact and allow your team to be creative during these times. And that's how we're going to figure out solutions and continue to move forward.
Yeah.
So I really love that article by Jan Bruce, and the article's called The Leader's Guide to Managing COVID-19 Panic.
Oh, that's good, man. Make sure you send that link to me, all right?
Yeah, I'm going to send them to you.
Awesome.
There's another one. I'm gonna just tell you the title of this one. It's really fantastic, by Ben Eubank. 4 ways to support employees during a crisis. And just really wonderful opportunities there for employers and team leaders to get some ideas and inspiration on how to support their team during this. And then the last thing that I wanted to share with you really is it's an article by Mandy Kloppers, and it's called How to Get Out of a Crisis. And it's mostly talking about the psychological side of things, and not necessarily with this specific crisis, but any crisis. But it really applies to where we're at today. And she touches on 3 things. It's a really short article, but it's a wonderful article for leaders and anyone struggling with anything. But it's 3 things. Number 1, don't catastrophize. It's a hard word to say, catastrophize.
It's almost as hard to say as Salomone.
That's right. Don't catastrophize. Don't make things worse than they are, right?
Right.
Nothing is as bad as it really ever is. And a lot of times it's not as good as it really seems, right? But we don't need to catastrophize. Number 2, and we kind of talked about that earlier with the other article. Number 2, get to the truth and deal with it, right? We don't need to be going on wild goose chases and rabbit trails as far as this is concerned, especially with people that have a hard time with depression and things like that. We need to be talking about the truth, and we need to be accurate with the things that we're reporting on, right?
Yeah.
And then number 3, and this is really important for leaders, and it's have a vision to get strong. Have a vision to get strong. And what that means is have a plan. Make sure that you have a plan. It doesn't have to be a good plan, but you have to have a plan for your team to rally around.
Yeah.
And like I said earlier, that plan can change. It should change. It's got to be evolving. We're getting new information every single day. Sometimes we're getting new information 2, 3, 4, 5 times a day.
Right.
You've got to be able to have a plan that evolves. And in order to make that plan successful and your team have buy-in, you've got to communicate it, but you also have to set them up to be adaptable. And so that's kind of where we are at Chick-fil-A Kenner. We're following these processes. We're following our plan. Today, actually, where I'm at my offsite office right now, we came up with a plan for next week and the week after and the week after to integrate a few more things in.
Yeah.
And it's important. It's important that the team knows that you have a plan and that's what you're working off of.
Yeah, that's all, man. That's really good stuff. Let me ask you this. What are some of the challenges, I guess, you've had when it comes to leading your team at Chick-fil-A? I know we talked about a couple of different things, but what are some of the challenges you've faced and some of the obstacles you've faced and how you've kind of overcome those just personally?
Yeah. So the biggest thing right now is fear.
Yeah.
We're living in a time where people are very fearful, and I've got team members that are fearful. We've got tons of customers that are fearful, and so being available for those people is the way that I overcome and go through those. And there's several team members that aren't working in the restaurant right now because they're fearful for one way or another. And taking a few times a day to have some of my leaders check in on those people, being available to bring them groceries or cook them food. I still need to get you that crawfish, Javi.
Oh yeah, I'm coming over. Are you you got it right now?
It's at the house.
Okay, bring that and that cow painting behind you. I want both of those.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah. But yeah, so just serving them like I would my neighbor or my mom. I tell everybody all the time, that works for me, like, you're part of my family now. And Catherine would echo that. That I treat every one of my staff as if they were part of my family. And actually, honestly, just like any family, it ain't always pretty.
Sure.
But when times are tough, we're going to be there for each other.
That's good.
And especially during now, it ain't always pretty, but we have their back. And we've made some decisions. I've made some decisions that are tough on me and my family personally, but it's changing people's lives beyond the four walls of my house, beyond the four walls of my restaurant, and beyond the borders of even our community. And it's important.
Yeah, that's so good, man.
It's important to care for people.
And I've seen that in you. You definitely love your employees and treat them like family. As many conversations that we've had, I know that that's so important to you. You're not just looking to see what you can get out of them, but you're looking to see how you can serve them and help them succeed and become all that they want to be. So I really appreciate that about you. Let me ask you this last question. If you had 30 seconds to share your best piece of advice for leaders who are leading teams right now through this pandemic, what would be like that main go-to advice you got?
Simon Sinek, a really great leadership author and speaker, always talks about your why. And times like this, it's so important to know your why. If you don't have the passion to get up every day and do what you do, or do what you need to do, then that's gonna be a problem, and it's gonna rub off on people. So you got to know your why. For me, it's my personal mission statement, and it's been my why for a long time. And I mean, I share it with you right now. It's to shine a light on the future of others by being a faithful steward of what God's entrusted to me, and creating relationships embodied with my core values of honor, integrity, respect, and dedication. And that's my why. That's why after Katrina, I went into the Coast Guard and served there. It's why I had a wonderful, amazing Coast Guard career, and then came to Chick-fil-A because I thought, man, what if I could make a difference in 1,000 people's lives every day, rather than 1,000 people's lives every year? And that turned into, everybody in Kenner supporting us so well that those numbers have increased, and we've added the airport and ULL, and it's just amazing when you take the things that God entrusts in you and do the right things with them. He gives you more to share and to be able to love people.
Yeah, when you're faithful with the small, he makes you faithful over the large, right?
Yeah, and sometimes it can be overwhelming.
Sure.
But that's why you got to know your why, and that's why you got to be principled.
That's so good. Chris, thank you so much for joining us today. Hey, look, if you're looking for food and you're listening to this, stop at the Chick-fil-A in Kenner off of Veterans. You can use promo code Manley Miller. You'll get one French fry for free. One extra fry.
A crispy one. A crispy French
good
fry.
Crispy French fry. Chris, thank you so much, man. Would you do me a favor? Would you pray for the people listening to this right now? Pray for those leaders who are motivating their teams.
Yeah, it would be my pleasure.
Awesome. Thanks.
Awesome.
There it is.
God, thank you for being with us. Thank you for being such a faithful leader to us all. And we're created in your image. And those of us who are fortunate to lead others, we ask you to bestow upon us wisdom, confidence, and strength during this time of the COVID pandemic. We know that you are a faithful leader, and we know that you have a plan for us, and sometimes it doesn't always meet up with our plan. But figuring out what your plan for us is one of the greatest adventures that life has to offer. We thank you for that. And we ask you to continue to bless us and share your love with us so we can continue to share our love and care with everyone around us. In your name we pray. Jesus.
Amen. Thank you so much, Chris.
Amen.
Appreciate
Thanks,
you, bro.
Chris.
Tell the family.
My
say
pleasure,
what's up.
guys.
It's our pleasure, man. Our pleasure.
Thanks, brother. Well, that was great having Chris on there, man. Manley, let me ask you, what is your quarantine takeaway for today?
Well, I thought the thing that was amazing is that Chris has 3 articles that he had on his mind, which just shows you that he was working hard at being a great leader.
Yeah.
You know, he's somebody that's taking it serious. I mean, I was listening to him, I was feeling convicted. Like, man, I need to take my leadership even to another level. I mean, I'm listening to him going like, man, he's really dug into this. He's really worked on this. And then I think the other takeaway for me was, it was interesting. He said, man, we covering people's hours by having them do training at home when we can't, bring them into the place for their normal hours.
Yeah.
Here's somebody, and that was one of his goals for the year.
Right.
Here's somebody who is looking at the crisis and finding the silver lining, the opportunity in the midst of it.
Right.
And, one of the things, I love my wife, Dana, and she is a great leader. And she's a great leader, especially in our family. And she was a great leader before I ever met her. I met her in church, and she was already a great life group leader and a disciple maker. And she's really been pushing so hard for us to leverage and take advantage of the time we have with our kids and our leadership with our kids, because she's like, we ain't gonna have another season like this.
Yeah.
And she was saying the other day how much she's really enjoyed it. But I think for her, she's done that same thing. Let me find the opportunity to lead in the midst of the chaos and the crisis.
Yeah.
And that's something I heard from Chris that it sounds like he's taken seriously and trying to do a great job at. And that's something I've seen from Dana, and she's trying to do a great job at. So I think for me, the key takeaway is, what opportunities exist in the midst of the crisis, and how can you lead through that by finding a vision that can take you to what, as Chris called it, finding it, living by his why.
Right.
His reason for everything he does is to go, man, what's the why that I can leverage in the midst of this opportunity? Because, it's not what I want it to be in every area, but there's also some opportunities that didn't exist before. So for me, that's the key takeaway.
Yeah, it kind of even goes back a little bit to what we said in the beginning, right, is you have to go and seek from other leaders how I can grow, how can I lead. And that's the thing, is he had those 3 articles, and he saw this happen, and instead of freaking out and feeling overwhelmed, he said, man, let me just go learn, let me go search, let me do some research. And he had those things ready, which I really appreciated. One of the things that I think I'm taking as my key takeaway is when he said, I went from wanting to change 1,000 people a year, impact their lives. He said, I wanted to just go from only impacting 1,000 people a year to impacting 1,000 people a day.
Yeah.
And that hit me. I don't know why. That struck a chord with me, because, the reality is, how can we, in a sense, as Christians and as pastors and as a staff, go to impacting more people? And I think if we look at this whole pandemic, like you said before, instead of looking at it as just as an obstacle, but as an opportunity to impact more people, then I think that there's some more opportunities in there. We just got to pray about it, think about it, search about it. And the whole idea is what we've been talking about throughout this whole podcast. How will we come out after this whole thing is over better, as a better team, impacting more people, helping more people, changing more people's lives? For people listening to this personally, how will your family come out better, closer to God, stronger financially.
And how are you going to be a better leader of whatever's been entrusted to you, whether that's at work or at home or in any other area? I mean, the reality is you could be a leader in your neighborhood because in all likelihood, there ain't nobody leading your neighborhood, you know?
Absolutely.
I was, last thought for me is, we were talking to Pastor Lee Fisher, who works here with us. And he was talking about how, man, him and his wife have taken on the responsibility. They're seniors.
Yeah.
They've taken on the responsibility in the community where they live of bringing food to everybody who's a shut-in. And when he said that earlier, it challenged me.
Yeah.
And I think in the same way of what you're saying is, it's like, man, how are you going to take advantage of the opportunities that exist for you? Nobody assigned him to be the leader of that community. He just assigned himself.
That's good.
So it's time for us to step up and take on the assignments that God is giving us the opportunity to take on.
Amen. Amen. This has been another episode of QuaranTEAM Cuisine. We hope you leaving fresh and full. Be sure to subscribe on podcast and Spotify. You can also find us on Facebook, Celebration Church Kenner. See you next time.